Building a character is arguably one of the most interesting things, one of the most fun things to do in RPGs, especially when it comes to Diablo. Building a character, playing your way, that is what makes this game so special, and if we like to grind, if we like to farm, it is ultimately because we want to achieve that perfection on our build. So in today's video, we're going to be speaking about builds, mainly the skeleton of the build. There are many things that you need to consider about making a build. There's a whole lot of different things like aspects and paragon points and whatnot. We're not going to be touching any of that right now, so for now, because otherwise it would be just way too long. But let's just stick to the basics about builds. Now, making a build is very fun. The easiest thing to do is just go online, watch a build that somebody else made, and try that build, which is usually people are going to be using the most popular thing that there's around, the highest damaging thing that there is around, because that's how we like to play online. And I'm not gonna lie, I watch builds all the time because it's just fun. It's just fun to see what other kind of crazy things other people comes up with. But I make my own builds. Every time that I play my games, I make my very own builds out of my very own imagination, and I advise for you to do the same, because ultimately making a build is deciding, it's the prioritizing point onto how your character is going to behave mechanically and on the actions as well. So if you can imagine something, if you can picture something in your mind, then you most likely have ways to make that happen. But let's talk about a little bit deeper on how can we actually get to make those things happen. The thing is with Diablo 4 is that we all hate this skill tree that we have right here, because it is very convoluted. So let's just begin with that. Let's talk about why is this skill tree so bad compared to the other iterations of the Diablo franchise. And mainly is because before you start deciding your skeleton for your build, you need to have in mind something that your character is going to ultimately do. Is it going to be a melee character? Is it going to be an archer? Is it going to be an archer that shoots arrows from his ass, or whatever thing, that shenanigans that you might think of? Well, it is easier to navigate between that and different iterations of Diablo. Dude, it was Diablo 2, and we did have the separation for the menus of what kind of skills would be for what kind of class. In here you have colors, but you have also a mix between the defensive skills, the utility skills, the actual damaging skills, the basic skills. So we're going to be talking about all of that. But then again, that is why we hate this thing so much, because it doesn't really differentiate what kind of class is going to do what. It is very tricky to handle at first sight, but yeah, this thing, I completely ignored it on my first playthrough on the betas, and it is something very nice that you need to have in mind. This little cord that you have right here, it will tell you what kind of skill is this. This is basic skills. They deal damage, and they are always available to cast. They do not cost resources, and that is why they are so amazing to have. Some classes will use them more than other classes. Then you have the core skills. These are going to be always your bread and butter for your damage. Then you have the, well, it's name, I think, a little bit different for every class, but these ones have, they are somewhat of defensive skills for the rogue on this specific points. It is not necessarily that for mobility, it's just skills that you will be using to move around the battlefield and to defend on the battlefield. And this is Subterfuge, which is also a utility skill, defensive skill. This is why it's so convoluted. It should be utility skills, defensive skills, and how are you going to mix and max that kind of stuff. Then we have this other branch, which are the skills that will imbue your weapon. At least in the rogue, it's going to be different for every single class, but it's just for you to make an idea. The thing that we need to have in mind is basic skills first. They are usually, depending on the class, they're usually going to help you to build the resource. Not so much on the rogue, but we're also going to have colors in here. The colors are going to depend, they are going to define to some extent what is it that, for example, the rogue is going to do. The blue color ones, they are going to be for rangers, all of them. These ones, they are going to be for melee or for your dual weapons. And usually you can always have your weapons equipped at all times, but the skills are going to be binds with the only difference being the Barbarian, that the Barbarian can assign the skills to whichever weapon that he would like to, but usually these skills are going to be used by daggers or swords or dual weapons that you have, and these are going to be for the range skills. And then you have the core skills, and you have quite a lot of them. Now, do have in mind that you're not going to be able to level every single skill on your menu. And you're going to have to make concessions. You're going to have to decide what is it that you would like to level up. My advice, and this is something that you should always be striving to do, your core skill is always going to be your highest damaging skill. As a matter of fact, if you build a character based on the armors, you're always going to be looking for skills that enhance the amount of ranks that you have on that skill. Like for example, as you can see right here, I have 6 ranks of rapid fire because my armor is contributing to this. The more ranks that I have in here, the more damaging this thing will be, and if this is going to be my bread and butter for my skill, the skill that is going to always cause damage, I want to max out this thing ASAP. Basic skills, you not really have to worry about that much about them, unless you are completely sure that they are going to be a main thing of your build, something that you will always be using for DPS. For example, if you're going to be a berserking barbarian, one of the skills augments your attack speed, and you're using 50% of your core skill and 50% of the rest of the time you would be using your basic skill. So then you would be maxing out this thing, but for other purposes it is something that you need to have in mind is as well. As you can see, this is nearing my end game, at least for this character right now. And I never level up any more of this thing because I seldom use this skill. Most of the cases, most of the times, or at least I think that 90% of the time, this is the skill that I am using, and this is the one that I am interested in having the most points into. Although do have in mind that past the 3 ranks, you get diminishing returns. You have something close like a soft cap, let's call it like that. Beyond that point, you will get more damage, but you will not get that much more damage than when you have those 3 extra skill points. So that is, maybe you want to use it into something different. That is something to have in mind. Then we have the passive skills. The passive skills, they are always going to be scattered all throughout the skill tree, and you want for them to have synergy. And this is something that is also a little bit convoluted, that I didn't understand that properly, but if you press the either triangle or Y on your controller, or if you're using your keyboard and mouse, you can just go in here and go for the keyboard search, and it's going to have a lot of terms. It's just going to have too much terms, and do not be overwhelmed by this. Just have in mind that at least one of this is going to determine how your synergies are going to work, and that is the most important thing in a Diablo game. The synergies. Synergies are the utmost importance of how your build is going to work. So let me give you an example. For this build that I am making right here with this character, my synergy comes from vulnerable. So I take care of all of this, and I can see now that I would benefit from these skills that I have highlighted. These are skills that I would like to take. So as you can see right here with my rapid fire, which is my bread and butter, I use this skill because this build is based on vulnerable enemies. I focus this build on making enemies vulnerable, and as you can see, more often than not, all of the passive skills and all of the synergies that I have right here, like this one for example, or like this one for example, you will see that I have always chosen every single skill that has vulnerable in here. This is also my core thing. Dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy has up to a 30% chance to cause an explosion, dealing more than that much more DPS, and that is what can assist you to not be too overwhelmed about what is it that you want to do with your build. And I cannot stress enough how helpful this is once you manage to get away from that those all of those words, and they feel like they are just way too much. Just look for something that you think that is going to work for you, that is going to be the main core of your build, and start synergizing like this. Like for example, let's say that we're a frozen mage. Every time that I have frozen skills, they are going to be colored, but also the passive skills and sometimes other skills synergize with that thing that I am building. So it is very important for you to synergize. Another thing to have in mind is that, for example, I did choose an ultimate skill right here, but just because there's the word ultimate in here, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to choose one of these. As a matter of fact, I was debating on this build on either taking this thing for my builds, because of how I am planning it. I am going to showcase my build on a different video, but I was thinking of switching that thing for this one to have a little bit more mobility. I ended up realizing that my build doesn't need to be mobile, and that my build does something entirely different, and I do not need to have this thing anymore. So I ultimately decided to use the ultimate. But do have in mind that just because it has the word ultimate and it sounds cool, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to max it out, that you need to choose that thing. You can most definitely choose something with a little bit more of defense. Like I said, these skills right here with the rogue, they offer utility and they offer defense as well. They work with the synergies that you are making for your build. Do have in mind as well that it is also very important that you explore all of the regions in the game, like I did right here, taking all of your Lilith's altars and whatnot, because the way to actually properly make your character that much stronger, Paragon's points are going to help, stats points are going to help, but the core of your skeleton, it's always going to be skills. The more points you're able to place into skills, into passive bonuses, into your active skills, the more that you can have to make those synergies happen, the better. And the way you do so is by completing all of the regions. So as you can see, for completing each one of the regions, you're going to get 1 skill point and 1 skill point, 2 skill points per region. Being there in here 5 regions, that means that you will get a total of 10 extra skill points for you to be able to make your build. So yeah, Diablo really rewards a character, a player that plays a completionist kind of playstyle. And I know that it might seem so much, but the amazing thing about this is that it also affects the rest of your characters. So you only have to do this once. You only have to do the completionist kind of thing just once, and that is going to make your character that much stronger. But then again, I think that that is the basic core of everything. I hope that you find a proper build. I love when you guys share your builds with me in the comments section, because it's always amazing to see how the mind of people works with builds, because it is something that I decided to do. My character is going to do something different than the rest of the characters that there's out there, and sometimes the most strongest thing is the one that nobody thought that it would work. But yeah, have fun guys making your builds. I will be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day, and goodbye.